welcome to a Talk IT tutorial. So this one's going to be Lab 5 for now. This is going to be about the client thread, so allowing multiple users. So carrying on from last time, we actually had an error on the client thread, and this is actually where we go to create it. So moving down to Lab 5. So a picture to help describe what is a client-server network. So we've got multiple clients over one single network going to a single server. So client, internet, a server that could be anywhere in the world. So getting to the down and dirty about the client thread. So this allow multiple users. So for every client that joins, we create them a client thread. So a thread is a single executable point. We can start and stop them or put them to sleep, etc. So what we're going to do is create the client thread class, and then we're going to import some stuff into that and make it a runnable so that we can use it for threading. So off our client thread here, I'm going to create the client thread class like so. In DOD, let's just have a look at that. So we want it to be in DOD, okay, finish. So there's our client thread class there. So we're going to import java.io, java.net and game logic. So again at the top here, just import those. So we need to be able to handle threading, so we're going to implement runnable, like so. That's getting angry because we haven't implemented all the methods that we need to. So if we highlight that, add unimplemented methods, so we've got an add override, so we've got a run method there. So for the client thread, what we're going to do is add a few variables. So we have a buffer reader, a print writer, we have input output, client number, so the client number specific to the client for each thread, the socket that we're going to be transporting the data through, the game itself, and then the client server controller, which is going to do with the distribution of our messages. And moving on to the constructor, this isn't fully complete, but it's nearly there. So let's put the constructor at the top. Control Shift F to format, save that. So we will send through into it the client that we're going to be using, the game and the client number. We're going to set all of those. We're going to create a new client server controller. We're going to output, so we're going to print the line of the client, so this is the client number effectively. And then we're going to try and start the input and the output, so this is actually how we're going to be receiving information or outputting information from the client. And as you can see, I've actually commented out something which is super.addGame this. So this is adding a player to the game, but obviously we haven't really got into the level of that yet, so I've just commented that out. I mean, it'd be something that we can add a bit later. And then here is where I mentioned the run method that we override, so using it from the interface runnable. So we need to have something in here, and this is what happens when we start this thread up. What do we want it to do? Obviously, when we start it up, we want it to play the game, but right now we just want to do a bit of testing. We want to see if it's working. So what we're going to do is just have it output some text just to say this is the client, this is what I'm doing, and it's just going to sleep a bit and it's going to send that to the client GUI. So for our run method, Control Shift F, like so, save that. So as you can see, for instance, we're going to try and output a message, just print that out on our console as well, and then just tell it to sleep. So output message is a method down here, and what it is, it uses the client server controller and a server to client message. So this is the sending of a message from the server to the client using our output stream and sending along the message for that. So obviously that doesn't work at all because it shouldn't, because we haven't implemented it yet. So we need to go do that. So if we go to here, create method there, and as it says, I'm just going to create a empty constructor there for it. And what we want to do in here is output.println message. So we're saying send this string to the output through the output, and then flush it. So what this uses is buffers. By saying flush, it just says send this straight away effectively. Otherwise you sometimes have to wait for it to be cleared first. Control Shift F on that to make it nice and neat. Okay, so now we need to build the client side to actually receive all of this. So we're going to go to client logic and do this. So opening up client logic, it's completely empty. So we're going to pull in our imports here. Ooh. Client logic. Import everything that we need. Add in our variables. So this again, it's all quite simple stuff. Output, input, the client GUI itself, the thread we're running on, the server, which is the socket, and the client server controller. Not much to really explain on that. So public class client is also going to implement runnable, so it's going to be a thread. And as you can imagine, we need to add the run method to that. Make that a little bit neater. So add a constructor. Just going to copy this and I'll go through and explain what's going on. Control Shift F on that. So what we do is we pass in the name, the port, and the client GUI. And so for the server, we're going to say, okay, it's a socket with the name there, and it's got the port here. Output is a print writer. Input buffer reader again, the server.get input stream. Create a new client server controller. As you can see, we're creating a lot of these client server controllers about the place. I haven't bothered to, but you could add a dependency injection framework like Spring to this, and you could create beans for client server controller and make everything a lot neater instead of creating all these loads of objects referenced everywhere for it. Set the client GUI, and then start the thread as this. So we say start client, this client logic as a thread. Then we obviously need to implement the run method for this. So the run method for the client logic is effectively going to be sit here and wait for messages from the server. So we're going to just sit here and we're going to just wait for the server. Okay, let's add that. So adding the wait for server method here. So it's just going to sit here. It's going to wait. We're going to read in line, and then we're going to send the a client-to-client message. So this is going from client logic to client GUI with the reply from the server. So we now need to do that in the client server controller. We need to implement the client-to-client message. Client like so. And you see in here it uses client GUI.output sent. We obviously need to implement this now. But first what we're going to do is just update the client GUI to create a new client logic. So in here, so when we create a new client GUI, we're also going to create a client logic in there at the same time, using the server IP, like so, and the port value here, and using this. Obviously we've got a client logic here, so we need to create a new one of those. Like that. Add this to client GUI, just F. put that at the bottom like so. So all that's just going to do is just print it out to the console. That's very simple. And then for client logic, if it doesn't need this at the moment, the socket exception does it. Okay, we just need to import a socket exception on that one, and that's it. Effectively, now we can try and run it and see what happens. So to get this to work, what we do is run the server, and then we run the clients. So we're going to have 2 clients running for this one. Fingers crossed, hopefully all of this works. So what do we do? So we've got the server GUI here, so we want to start that one up first. So enter the server port 4307. So this is okay, great, started the server. It's going to start on the local host. So let's start up our client GUI now. So localhost is 127.0.0.1 and the port is 4307 like I just defined. So as you can see, we've got messages coming from the server now saying test to client. Now we've joined. So what we do is we actually just start up another one at the exact same time using the exact same process, and it should say test to client 2. So now what we can do is actually switch between those. So this is the server, and you can see it's sent 3 messages, and then it's sent something to 2, then it's going 2 1 2 1 2 1, and it'll just keep going like that for a long time. This is client 1 and this is client 2. So now what we've done is effectively created this multi-threaded environment for ourselves. And this is going to be the basic building blocks of what we're going to be working off. Anyway, that's that, and then we're going to start adding functionality to the server and the client, and that's it. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you've enjoyed it.